It's the morning of May 12th, just past midnight, Dakota Bar and Grill, St. Paul, Minneapolis. Composer, woodwind artist Joshua Redman.
That's a beautiful way of saying it. I've never been introduced like that before. That's wonderful. I really only play one woodwind, and that's the saxophone. But hopefully, eventually, I'll be able to play others.
I did see a soprano there, so that had to be a second instrument.
Yeah, and it's still a saxophone though. But I like the composer part because that is something which I'm trying to develop. So it's nice to be introduced as that. Thank you.
Joshua Redman, it's been sort of stimulating my curiosity. I hope you take this in the way that I deliver it. It's a question about your muse, your inner muse, and how you describe it.
Oh, that's an interesting question. I don't know how I would describe my inner muse, but I know that the driving force behind my music, if everything is going right, is my soul. And what I try to do is get in touch with my soul. I try to not think and almost not feel physically. I try to feel the music on a spiritual level and get in touch with the deepest part of my experience on the level of the soul, and the most creative part of my personality, the part of my personality that synthesizes all the practical and empirical experiences that I've had and transforms them into dreams and wishes and impressions and pastiches, and that's what I try to tap into, that uninhibited creative part of my personality, and allow that to express itself when I'm playing music.
Well, certainly in the group that you're presenting as you make this tour, you have found freedom to fly as opposed to working in the Lincoln Center Jazz Orchestra.
Well, working with the Lincoln Center Jazz Orchestra was a great experience for me. I think sometimes in a lot of situations you can, find attain levels of your greatest freedom in the context of severe restriction. Now that didn't always happen with Lincoln Center. There were some nights that I just felt downright restricted, but there were other nights that I felt within my very restricted role in that band, sometimes I felt like an enormous sense of oneness and unity, and that's what I strive for in every situation, is trying to be in touch with everyone and everything that's around me on a spiritual level. And that allows me the greatest freedom. It's not about, structurally whether I have freedom, because, sometimes playing pieces or playing in settings where you are in a, have very restricted structural forms, sometimes you can attain a great degree of oneness. You can be so in touch with everything and so in tune with your role as it relates to everything else that you can be free and be creative,
And as you think about creativity, and when you think about your muse and your psyche and your soul, how do you go about protecting it in the world we call the business of music?
Well, that's an ongoing problem for me, and I think I'll always be searching for the answer. Well, there's no answer, but it's always going to be a struggle. I think your soul is always beset by soulless things. There's always soulless things knocking on your soul's door, and all you can do is prevent them from getting in. And that's not to say that the business isn't important, and that's not to say that I don't spend a lot of time thinking about the business, but the bottom line is that with the business, I think about it. With music, I feel it and I express it and I deal with it on the level of the soul. And I think the most important thing is to keep the business apart. And in some ways, it's a very simple thing to do. You just don't let it affect your music. But on another level, I mean, that sounds very simple, and it is. It's a very simple thing. All you have to do is make sure that when you get up on the bandstand to play, there's no business. There's nothing but you, the other musicians, and the audience, the music and the environment. But of course, sometimes the simplest things in life are the hardest things to do, and it's very difficult for myself and for, I think, almost every other musician out there to draw that very hard, very clear, very thick line between, music and the practical pressures of life. But that's something that I try to do. How I do it is simply by trying to concentrate as much as possible when I'm on the bandstand and trying to tune in with the music and tune out everything else.
A marvelous focus and discipline. One thought concerning the physical aspect of this. Obviously, you must keep yourself in a very special frame, training that is. What is that discipline? To, for example, breathe the way you do, phrase the way you do.
I think it's I don't follow a regimented physical program. I kind of have bouts with exercise, and I usually end up losing them. But I try to stay fit. I try to eat healthy. But it's that's something that's another major problem that I face these days, is being on the road all this time and being under in a state of such tremendous physical pressure. Sometimes I feel that my stamina gives way, and it did this week. I got sick, and I have to find ways to keep myself healthy, whether that's cutting back on being on the road, or whether that's getting into a good routine of sleep and diet on the road, and getting into an exercise routine. I don't know. I'm still searching for the answer to that one.
Well, I know it's late, and I just want to say that it's a privilege to meet and talk with you once again, from the tours of the Lincoln Center Orchestra to the Ordway in this part of the world in St. Paul, Minneapolis, and to here in this intimate environment of the Dakota Bar and Grill. And just congratulations on what you do. I wish you the very best, and to your leadership, that seems very special.
Oh, thank you very much. Well, I have to say that as much fun as I've had playing with groups like Lincoln Center and working as a sideman with many different projects, it's a great pleasure and a great honor, and a tremendous source of spiritual sustenance for me to have the opportunity to lead and work with a great band of young musicians that I have with me. Peter Martin, Christopher Thomas, and Brian Blade are three of the finest musicians and finest human beings that I've ever met. And I have to say that I do feel as free as I've ever felt before in this context.
Joshua Redman, keep well, keep strong, keep that creativity and soul going.
Thank you. Take care.